quiet week in local news and local events. As always, Desmond, you got something to add? Alrighty, it's early contributions from Engineer Des. What's up?
We have to
Start over or something? We just screw up.
mic one was off.
Oh, you should probably turn all the mics on then.
I did.
Thank you. All right, are we back? Are we good now?
We're good.
All right. So we're currently functioning everywhere, Desmond.
Yes.
Okay, that's going on. All right. Anyway, welcome to the Doing Better Show. My name is Oliver Ox, and we're doing some Doing Better news. Talk about local news, local happenings. Beth is with me as always, yet again. We just did this a minute ago, but yeah, Beth's still with me. We're gonna get into some stuff going on. The weather is getting nice, so I'm hoping lots of people are getting out. We have had some kind of gross weather lately. Reminder always to everyone out there, your local library is a great source of stuff to do. I was just looking a few minutes ago on some of those pages, and pretty much every single day there's stuff going on at your local library. So if you're not sure, you'd like to get involved in your community, get out there, get your feelers in, I think that's a really great place to start, is at your local library.
But verify, last time I checked, the Lawrence Library wasn't open on weekends.
At all, huh?
At all. So that may have changed with the weather getting better and school coming to an end. So before you go, verify their hours. I do know that the Georgetown Library has really interesting hours that are more friendly for people who work and want to do things with their families but have jobs and need to balance that out. They have extended hours on certain weekdays as well as weekends. So verify your hours.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to get out there. I mean, it's not like they're going to card you if you're not from Georgetown. They're not going to be like, get out of our library. Go experience. There's lots to do out there. I was just, Des, can you, thank you. I had an unfortunate start to my day today, or a less enjoyable start to my day, which involved going to a celebration of life for a friend of the family who passed. She was really involved in community theater in Newburyport, and it was really inspiring to see how many people were touched, and it's just a good reminder that anytime you can get involved in something, whatever your thing is, whether it's if you're not a theater person or whatever, but to go out and get involved, and I think the connections that you can make locally have huge impacts on our lives and on the people around us. So that was certainly evident today, hearing the testimony of people who knew her and her impact in the theater. And so I just, as always, please go out and get involved locally. There's lots of opportunities to do so. Des, you look like you had something to add over there? No? Okay. So the unfun stuff I just wanted to touch on from this last couple of weeks that we haven't had a chance to talk about because we haven't been here. Massachusetts has really seemed to be one of the focuses in the country around some of this ICE enforcement. Mm-hmm. And I want to be super clear when we're talking about this immigration issue. It is a complex issue. There's if we're going to have a country and we're going to have borders, there is going to need to be some level of enforcement. If we're going to have immigration and legal and illegal immigration, there needs to be some way to enforce it. My biggest fear with the Trump administration coming in, and really their number one popular issue, I think, was the immigration one. My number one fear was that they were going to enforce it in ways that were what I would say incompatible with America. America is based on freedom and our fundamental rights. And if we don't have freedom and fundamental rights, there's nothing special about this country. I mean, it's really what makes any greatness of America that you would like to make again. All is dependent on us having freedom and rights. And if we don't have freedom and rights, it's kind of meaningless flag waving, in my opinion. And what we see right now is the fallout of that. So I got a little video I want to show. This is just one from Instagram. There's tons of versions of these. Mm-hmm. So many past generations have been around in a time when injustice was being carried out in their name. Our generation, it's happening in front of our face, whether you're talking about things that are happening internationally or things that are happening right here in Worcester and Chelsea, Mass. We're seeing what I would describe as thuggery being carried out in the name of our government and America. So here's a little vid. The other one doesn't have it. That's as much as I can handle. That one, that's in Worcester. And then here's another one in Chelsea. I think this was a week or two ago.
Otra vez, como yo escucho a ellos diciendo que anda regresando de iglesia, ¿verdad? Día de Madre, ¿verdad? Escucho a los niños atrás llorando. Fue terrible.
Kenneth grabó con su celular toda la escena y los gritos de la madre aún no salen de su cabeza.
Y yo lo escucho que, ¿por qué él? ¿Por qué?
So here's my number one. I have two problems with the way this is happening. Problem one, again, we're denying people their constitutional rights. And the point of the Constitution is not to say the government grants you these rights. That was not what was great about the Bill of Rights. It wasn't here, the government is granting you citizens these rights. Here you go, you can have these. It was the government recognizing these are our God-given rights. That this is what every single human being has. And so your argument about, well, they're not citizens, they don't get their rights, is invalid. And again, you can go read John Locke or any of the Patrick Henry, any of the writings upon which right here in the state of Massachusetts, so much of this, the revolution was fomented, and it was about these fundamental human rights. Now, obviously, we can't go without saying they had some blind spots, and they sort of thought those were only for white male landholders. Many of them, not all of them. There were some much more egalitarian minded of the founding fathers, but they were victims of their time. We need to be smarter than that, and we need to be better than this. I agree that, again, we're going to have a border. There are going to have to be people that get deported out of this country. It is going to have to happen if that's part of our plan to have borders. We probably are going to have to deport people. So if we're going to do that, we need to be doing it in a way that respects people's fundamental human rights, which means you cannot just throw people out of the country. You have to have a hearing. Well, we're going to have a hearing for a whole court case for 10 million people. That's not ever going to... Tough shit. It is what it is. We have to have a hearing. Otherwise, Bob, they can come get you too. Sally, Tim out there, all you, you speak English and you were born here, prove it. Oh, wait, you can't prove it because you don't have a hearing. So without hearings, without our basic fundamental rights, you have no guarantee that this is even an immigration issue. It could be enforcement of anything. And we've seen it with students protesting and then getting their green cards canceled and and basically kicked out of the country. That it's clearly not about an even enforcement of a standard. And that's the second part of this that I find really disturbing. It seems like there's not really any significant attempt to deport. I mean, again, if you listen to the numbers they've been banding about for the last few years, it's probably about 10 million people. Well, they're not making any attempt to actually deport 10 million people. They're not saying, like, here's our standard, X. If you are, fill in the blank, here illegally ever, we're gonna deport you. Or if you've been here for less than 2 years, or some standard that they could apply evenly to every single immigrant in this country and say, here's what we're doing for everyone. That would be logical and sensical. But it's not what we're getting. We're getting this van shows up in your neighborhood, people with masks on, pile out, and then pull people and then kidnap people. Let's be honest, it is what it is. It is kidnapping. Mm-hmm. There's no other way of saying if you're not in a legal proceeding for which you have warrants and probable cause and all the things that make law enforcement not tyranny, then it's tyranny. And it's really hard to watch, and it's really hard to watch as it gets cheered on by people who think that this is that the immigrant is the enemy. And that's a fundamental misunderstanding of the way the world works. The person, Jimmy Dore says this perfectly. He goes, anytime you find yourself looking at someone below you as your enemy, you're wrong. Someone's making a fool of you, right? It's the old cartoon with the banker's got the big pile of cookies and the worker's got one cookie and the other guy has 0 cookies. And he goes to the worker, hey, watch out, that guy wants your cookie. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's exactly what's going on here. You can be upset with illegal immigration. You can be upset with the way in which it's happening. You can think that people should come here legally and all that stuff. But the idea that your enemy as an American worker is undocumented worker B over there, that's not, they didn't ship your jobs to other countries. They're not the one who's not going to hire you. That would be the hiring manager at the company, who never seems to get in trouble, by the way.
Your enemy is not Jose, it's Purdue.
Bingo.
And it's always been that way. Your enemy has always been, and it's divide and conquer, and every society has it. So as long as you can keep people separated and fighting for what limited resources they're allotted, you're going to ignore everything else.
Yeah. The thing that we need to always keep front of mind, right, is that since 1971, productivity in this country has gone like this. We have more people in the workforce. We have technology. We have machines. We have robots, and the amount of stuff made per person has done this, and wages have done this, adjusted to inflation, and it's why less people can afford houses. It's why people are struggling, even though there's no logical reason why things should be harder now than they were in 1970. For working people, it just doesn't make sense. Everything should be easier. We have fucking robots. We have AI. We have all these things that make everything much, much easier, much less laborious. And the result of that, if we lived in a somewhat just society, would be that all of us had a little bit more for a little bit less labor. And instead, we all have a little bit more for way more labor. Your average family is putting in far more hours a week of labor than they were in 1970. In 1970, an average family was probably worth 40 hours a week of labor. And now it's probably a lot closer to 80. And we're not living better because of it. We don't have more control over our lives because of it. We don't own more property as workers because of it. And it's really the super rich getting over.
My household would be 180 hours.
That's wild.
Because I work between 40 and 60. My mother works between 40 and 60. My father, who's semi-retired, puts in about 30. So you do that math, and
Yep.
you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
And that's how we can afford a house.
Right. And you're well educated.
Three incomes.
Yeah.
3 high-tech incomes.
Yeah.
1 house. That we bought in 1995 and just paid off.
Yeah. So it's just really, really important. Anytime the politician or whoever is pointing you in or the talk show host, as it may be, is pointing you in the direction of, look at these people, these Guatemalans and El Salvadorans and Nicaraguans and, Syrians are coming for your job and they hate your culture and they don't love America and they're not. None of those people are doing you any damage. None of those people. None of those people were responsible for the fact that our wages have been stagnant, why productivity is skyrocketed.
There's also been a bit where they've profited on you feeling like you have less than the previous generation. So part of it is, yes, things are not as they should be. But another part being, oh, you're miserable because of X, Y, and Z. Maybe you aren't, but you're getting hit.
Yeah.
Because of marketing. So we have had an economy now for 40 years of, if you buy X, you will be happy.
Yep.
So the only way that works is to tell someone they're miserable. So you get told every day you're fat. You get told every day you're poor. You get told every day if you just had this one little thing, your life would be so much better, which never is true. An item does not bring happiness unless it is chocolate or something fried. It does not bring joy. So you only can advertise to a point where you're comfortable, and so they have to make you uncomfortable. And so this has kind of been this feedback loop of, I can't afford that in-ground pool. So you have the people who really are in trouble. There are people who are really in trouble and really need help. And then there's these other people who, I didn't get to go to Disney this year. Funny thing, the people who say couldn't go to Disney this year are more up in arms than the people who've been uncomfortable for 40 years.
Yeah.
And that's because they're the people that we're advertising to. We're advertising to the person like, if you come to this spa once a week, you'll find bliss. If you come to, and we don't need that. There is an economy of what we do need and what we don't need. And we have emphasized so much of our economy on the stuff we don't need and have kind of forgotten of what we do need. And then also have a monopoly of what we do need to the point that that's a scarcity.
I think that's a great point. I think there's a big cultural piece from consumerism, right?
Yeah.
Of like, you're not good enough, I'm not good enough, I need the things, right? The other thing that's an interesting economic piece there is the relative cost of necessities versus luxuries has really, really changed. If you think about how expensive a house was in 1970 versus the average salary, it wasn't too expensive, right? How much a computer cost, or obviously 1970, maybe 1990, right? A computer was was probably 2, 3, 4 months rent, right? Now a computer is a quarter of a month's rent. How about a big TV? How many people had big TVs in 1980? Most people's TVs were smaller than my computer, and were with a big old cathode ray box that buzzed and whatever. And that TV, that buzzy little TV, probably cost your parents the same as a month's rent or a month's mortgage. Clothing. Again, clothing now as a percentage of the average salary is so cheap. You can go buy you can go buy t-shirts for $3 and, again, you're talking 1,000th of a month rent on a t-shirt when that would have been a much larger, more luxury item back then. The problem with this is the fact that all these like luxury, entertainment things are so cheap, relatively, and the food, healthcare, a roof over your head, the most important things are relatively very expensive. And it sucks because I think we try and fill, those are the things that give you the security, the things that might help support long-term happiness. The consumer items are not. Like that piece of clothing is not going to, after the first time you wear it, not very entertaining anymore.
Don't look at my closet right now. It is a wall of depression. It's 2 closets of depression.
Yeah. And like, same thing, like this, device that I paid $600 for, used, is going to be, in a year is worth $100 if I'm lucky. And then you very rapidly depreciating after that. There's no long-term value that this brings me. Whereas the house that you would be buying and supporting yourself in, does have some long-term value and does translate to wealth that you can pass on generation to generation. But you did bring up a big point that a lot of it is our attitude around it. A lot of it is our culture around it. It's very hard. The good news here is that although it's hard to change the structures and this and whatever, the culture is not that hard to change. Yeah. And if we make up our minds that we're not going to value buying stupid consumer shit, and we are going to value spending time with your family, taking care of people, being responsible, et cetera, et cetera. Have you seen the videos on the TikTok? There's been a bunch, but of the Chinese manufacturers outing the luxury goods. Have you seen any of those? No. So there's a bunch of videos of like in Chinese factories. They're like, oh, you see that? That Louis Vuitton bag that you pay, $3,000 for? Yeah, look at this piece of crap here. Like, it's made in China. We're going to send it off to France where they're going to put a made in France sticker on it. And then you're going to spend $2,000 on it. And it just cost me $12 to make or whatever. And they go through and there's a bunch of them outing luxury.
I already knew that.
Well, but like the whole concept, like
yeah.
It's again, not to be overly judgmental, but here we go. But like I travel in the airport a lot and I see the amount of people that have these incredibly expensive luxury items, and I just don't like. I almost want to go. Are you happy? Did that little purse make you happy, or that watch, or whatever that thing that is gaudy and ridiculous expensive? Like, did that add happiness to your life? Because I'm not impressed. You know, what do you got, Des?
Can we talk about that same thing about phones? Like recently, because you pointed out your phone, right? $600. Recently, big ol' Apple has released previews of what the iPhone 17 is going to look like.
Yeah.
It looks like a Google Pixel 7. Like it looks like a Google Pixel.
Yeah.
You know what that is, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah.
You know the little cool things. Does anyone here, the two people here, do any of you guys want to guess how much that phone costs?
An iPhone 17. Hold on,
I'm
I got
gonna
it.
guess.
Here's
it's
our
gonna
picture.
Be 1,100.
Oh, you're funny. How about like double that and then some?
Nuh-uh.
Suck my what?
How much is it?
2,500.
Yeah. The thing is,
Which-
what do they do?
That's my entire thing. That's why I've always been an Apple hater since I came out the womb, because it's just it's the most dumb thing ever, because
You're the right age to actually be an Apple hater since you came out of the womb.
yes, no, because they release these overpriced products that aren't actually worth anything. You can get a fucking Samsung for a quarter of the price and have it do essentially the same fucking thing and have it do it better. And it's consumerism, and it's their culture is one of the best I've ever seen in my life, because the fact that they get these, pardon the word, retarded people to continuously buy the same product over and over and over and over again. Like, they haven't changed what they have been doing in the last 5-6 years. This phone isn't different from the iPhone 11. It's the same fucking thing over and over and over and over again.
It does,
and it's insanity. It's
Well,
insanity.
He's
'Cause
mad.
I have that rant because that's exactly what it was I'm going back to when I was your age. Actually, I would have been about 7 years older than you. Oh God! And that was when the little tiny iPods. So not even the full iPod.
The nanos.
The nanos, the little nanos. Oh, when did I get a nano? I got a nano in 2011. And so I was almost 30. And so that was when I finally broke down and I bought an iPod because I just wanted something small. Before that, I got just the generics, and now I just get generics from China. I still have MP3 players. I have this nice little waterproof one that you could go swimming in. I got 2 of them. Got them from Amazon. I mean, yeah, that's a whole other boat of cheap satisfaction. But I went straight to the factory. I'm not going to go to a company in America that just put something etched on it. They didn't even etch it. They actually paid someone else in China to etch it at a different company. I'm going to go straight to the poor little woman who had to do circuit board.
I see you over there all over, being absolute appalled. Yeah.
I don't understand.
No, because it's the same phone. And
iPhone 17 Air, is that the cheap one, the light one? That's going to be $900.
It's going to be $2,000 anyway.
They said that one's only $900. Here's the thing that I don't get, right?
Regardless.
Like the new one here is, it's saying it's going to have a 48 megapixel camera instead of a 16 megapixel camera.
Who the fuck cares?
so I think
who the fuck cares? If we're being so dead honest.
Yeah, 48 instead
unless
of 12.
you are a professional photographer or you're making YouTube videos with your phone, no one gives a fuck. And the people who are making YouTube content with their phone is a very slim amount of people. And these mass amount of people who are buying this phone that don't fucking need it, and they're like, well, look at my iPhone. Look at my iPhone. When you're not using the features that is given on it, and it's pointless to buy. Because if you're not going to use it, at that point, get a fucking Samsung. And then these people who like the culture, right?
Or just keep your old phone.
Exactly.
That would be my
simple.
bigger point. Like, keep your old phone. You
don't need it.
Yeah.
And also, okay, so the culture, right?
Okay.
It's the most. I don't like using this word, hype beast thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
And it's a constant hating. It's the divide amongst people who have Androids and iPhones.
It's so stupid.
And that's the most dumb thing ever. And I remember you telling me about it's the conveniency of an Apple, and that shit is not convenient. It has a couple niche, very niche features that a phone like a Samsung phone doesn't have, and it's fucking pointless because you use it 2% of the time of the year use, if you're buying these phones yearly, the year use of that phone, you're using that maybe 5 times, and it's fucking pointless. It's a waste of the extra $1 grand, $1.5 you're spending on it when you could go pay rent with that $1.5 grand.
Yes.
If you think rent is $1 grand, right?
No. But I'm saying
Yeah.
you put that money toward that.
Yeah,
Put money
no.
towards
So
it, yeah.
so I think when you think about consumer culture, it is a every consumer purchase you make does take away from your strength financially, right?
Yeah.
Your base financially, and I think that's a good point. And certainly, I haven't seen anything in. Like, none of my phones for the last 5 or 6 years have added any value over the previous phone.
I mean, there's a lot of sci-fi on that where you just kind of think of it. I've never sat through the Justin Timberlake version, but there is a movie from the 80s where, and it's been remade many times, but you could sell seconds of your life.
Oh, I know you know what. Yeah.
Yeah, so the first one in the late 80s was actually the original one, which was really good because the person who's doing this and he's trading people's minutes, his sister is an alcoholic, and she is using those seconds that he's giving her, and she's just immediately turning it back around at the bar, taking those seconds back off her life, and she actually just sits at the bar and drinks herself to death while he's in a business meeting in the back room. Because every time she makes that decision of, yes, I'm going to buy this, that takes a second off her life. And that's really what it is that every one of those pennies is your own ability to support yourself.
Yeah.
The power you have. Unfortunately, money itself, and if you say gold, I will come over there and strangle you, but because gold is just the same. But we agree that money means something.
Yes.
And as a society. And we agree that this amount of money equals a loaf of bread.
Right.
And if we can't agree on that, the money's worthless. You might as well just set it on fire. In fact, in several societies, that's what happened, was that what the money couldn't buy the bread,
Right.
therefore it was used to heat a house.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But we'll get there again, yeah.
Yeah.
So where are you putting your money towards, or are you stockpiling it? I'm of the stockpiling. I'm guilty of that. I stockpile it way too much, and I know that when shit goes down, I have a lot of flammable material. But I also have a wood stove. So now I can burn that money when it turns out that it's completely worthless, and I'll be incredibly pissed because I have spent so much of my life, those seconds,
Yeah.
to make those dollars, that as every second has gone by, it has depreciated in value.
Yeah.
So more of it is required for the basic necessities.
Right.
Until we hit a point where it just.
Right.
And so as long as you can feed yourself, clothe yourself, and house yourself, the rest of it is nice. And having that attitude, A, makes you a happier person, makes you more financially secure because you're not going to make stupid decisions with your money, and pisses everyone else off. And that is true happiness.
That's awesome. All right, one more story I wanted to touch on while we talk about our local issues. So in my state of New Hampshire, one of the big kerfuffles right now is about book bans in public schools. So the reason this is, in my opinion, a great example of where the mainstream left and the mainstream right narratives are both fucking stupid, and we're sort of making a whole big deal, in my opinion, out of kind of nothing. So the genesis of this bill is a reaction to the more sexual education and gender stuff in public schools. So a lot of people are reacting to transgender stuff specifically, and then heavily sexual or sexualized material in public schools. And so there's a book right now that is going to Governor Kelly Ayotte's desk. It's been passed by the House and the Senate, and it's going to it basically makes it so under the proposed law, parents may submit written complaints alleging that a book or other material is obscene. To qualify, the content must appeal to the what does prurient mean? I don't know if I know that word. Prurient. I'm Googling that shit. Prurient.
We are an educational channel as well.
Having or encouraging an excessive interest in sexual matters.
Prurient.
So you're a teenager.
Prurient. Having or encouraging an excessive interest in sexual matters. Okay.
So you're 17. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's biology.
Okay, so let's go back to where is this? So, to qualify, the content must appeal to the prurient, shameful, or morbid interest of minors, and depict that language is
That's kind of creepy.
shameful or morbid. What does that mean? And depict nudity, sexual acts, or sadomasochistic and abuse in a way that is patently offensive to the prevailing standards in the adult community with respect to what is suitable for minors.
What the fuck does that mean?
So, it sounds like you would agree to it, because what it is you don't want to be the one who gets called pervert. So the stuff about sadomasochism, what school book in your school library is going to be talking about dungeon mistress Karen?
Yeah.
But it's per the purview of the community standards. What community are we talking about?
What part of the community? Yeah.
I'm from a part of the country where this would cause me to say fuck you. Because I'm from Idaho. So I'm from, and this has had ebbs and flows. When I was alive and living in Idaho, we had it being pretty liberal. You could go to a library, get whatever the hell you wanted. 10 years before I was born, it was completely different. You had your communities, your PTA, all of these were being run by community leaders who were also parts of certain religious organizations. So if your PTA and your Baptist church has the same board, your community standards would be very different than if your PTA was being run by people who were part of the university medical community. So the town I lived in had one of the largest universities in the area that was one of the universities that came up with cloning, came up with much of the space program of the time.
Wow.
That was a kick-ass school. My public school and my school board was very, very science-driven. It was a very hard school. You go down the road, and now you're in a community where your PTA is being run by Kelly Sue Osborne. I'm choosing a name. Head of the Women's Alliance for...
family values or something like that. Yeah.
Christian family values.
Yeah.
And also very large Nazarene population, Mormon population, Seventh-day Adventist population.
Yep.
And these are all groups that teach us that science is bad and that medical intervention is bad. Mormons are actually pretty middle of the road, politically and education-wise. It's the other groups that get a little interesting. And there are groups that claim to be part of these mainstream religions, and they aren't. And they are all populated in parts of the country like Idaho, Nevada, Utah, where there's a lot of space, there's very little people, and there's not enough oversight on creepiness.
Yeah, so that's, I think, problem one right here is that's a lot of, that could mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like, again, prurient and shameful, those are incredibly relative words.
Now, if the bill said something like, because it has a thing about nudity, if it had
Yep.
a thing about sadomasochistic relationships, okay, yeah, we can get behind that. Explicit sexual scenes, yeah, cool.
So it says that, and so it must depict nudity, sexual acts, and sadomasochistic abuse in a way that is patently offensive. The problem I find is the patently offensive to prevailing standards of the adult community.
So
like,
if they take that part out and they just keep it as a checklist, then you're cool. But if you put it as it's now up to interpretation, who is the interpreter?
right.
And that's when you have to back up.
Right. And
Okay, these are our laws. These are what we want to expose children to. This is a checklist. Does it hit this checklist? Yes, get it out. If it doesn't hit this checklist, have it. Don't advertise it, but have it. And as a parent, you're responsible for knowing what your kid is reading.
Yeah, I mean, my take on this is it's just kind of unnecessary.
Yeah.
So, I get the idea behind it, and I get parents wanting to protect their kids, especially if they think their teachers have an agenda or values that are contradictory to their own. So I would, of course, support. So the people supporting this bill are saying it's a parents' rights issue, which I get, and I think that I tend to lean in that direction towards parents' rights in general. So I support that. Here's my problem with this. My problem is I don't think it's that big of an issue. Is this? Are there all kinds of kids? Oh, Engineer Des got something. What do you think?
Okay. Really crazy idea here. Just pay attention to what the fuck your kids are doing. It's just that simple. It's just that fucking simple.
Well, so I think that's if you know what your kids are reading in school and they bring something home or tell you about something that you don't approve of, I think you have every right as a parent to go and say, hey, principal, teacher, whatever, I don't like you reading this.
Exactly. It's just that simple. You need to communicate.
So I think that kind of, again, the concern that drives this, I think would be dealt with by that. I also, though, I don't want to be too one-sided on this, because the flip side of this, and what I see on most social media posts, especially from my lefty friends, is like, they're going to burn all the books in New Hampshire. New Hampshire's banning books. New Hampshire's banning books. That's fundamentally a lie. Saying something shouldn't be allowed in a public school is not banning the book. Even if regardless of whether or not you agree with things being limited from public schools or not, that's not book banning. And it's really unhelpful to the conversation when you straw man someone's argument like that. When we make up these arguments of the other side, and I find that's my problem right now with my lefty friends, is there's lots of things that are just not true and that they're complaining about. And there's lots of true things to dislike about the Trump administration and the Republican Party and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of true stuff there. But you're diluting it because you believe every fucking thing bad that you read about Trump, et cetera. And this is why he got elected. He got elected because CNN said Trump said this, and it turns out Trump didn't say that, and they're blatantly taking things out of context. And what that did was it made people on his side, like, oh, they're coming after Trump. They don't want to see him win. He's an outsider. That is why Trump won the election, is because he got to paint himself as an outsider. And the reason that happened is because you kept lying about him. You said, he said there were good people on both sides. No, he never said that. There's a whole laundry list you can go down of, all the Russia collusion hoax, all this stuff that was not true about Donald Trump, who, by the way, I don't fucking like and I think is a scumbag and a terrible president, right? There's lots of really, really legitimate ways to criticize these people. And when we jump into this, like, all Republicans are Nazis, kind of crap, it's just not helpful. And what you do is you make it's just divisive. We need to be doing the opposite of that right now.
Well, it's also, we're back to our economy. It's our economy, stupid. Because originally we had FCC guidelines where every channel that broadcast on the United States had 2 hours of news. Once in the morning at 7 a.m. and once in the evening at 6 p.m. And maybe once again at 10, 11 o'clock. That's it. That was the only requirement.
We have a comment.
Oh, what's your comment?
Someone said, keep any sexual shit away from kids until high school. Which, I want to say, I can only slightly agree with. I feel like there's a certain extent, I feel like 6th, 7th grade when you're pubescent, that is probably when, not sexual, but you should understand what the fuck's happening to your body. You should understand what is happening to you, why you feel these feelings, and what those feelings are. I feel like that's kind of a...
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the definition of what you're saying is sexual. Are you talking about a scene from a book which explicitly does a scene?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about we had to watch a channel. I don't know if the boys had to watch it, but they separate the girls and the boys when you're about 9 years old, and the girls go watch a video with a lot of pink that's promoted by Always Pads.
These are the puberty videos.
The puberty videos. So are we talking?
those.
Are we talking the puberty videos? Are we talking about the health videos about bloodborne diseases, or are we talking about a scene from Homer's Iliad?
Yeah, I mean, so I think I get that idea of like keep sexual stuff away from kids through high school. I think that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I get
Make
that.
it a checklist.
But also, once again, sorry for interrupting,
Yeah.
but also, once again, it's on the parents to also introduce their children to this. Once again, you've got to talk to your kids, you got to communicate. I feel like it's a mix of both that the school should somewhat enforce it if you're a lazy fucking parent and don't care to communicate with your kids. But on the same point, on the same thing, also as a parent, you should be telling your kids about these things, like you have fucking whenever you did that.
I think there's.
You didn't have it be the, oh, by the way, you're going to have a little sister be the talk, because that's the talk I got. That
No.
was my sex talk, was my parents freaking out, and then, oh, by the way, you're going to have a brother or sister. Here you go.
No, we did biology basically. We
Yes.
had sperm meets the egg sort of thing.
Yeah, biology is
Yeah.
perfectly fine. The problem is that at some point there's going to be a weirdo who's going to say teaching your kids biology is sexual. And so that's where you need to have that checklist. Is like, hey, this we can agree on. This we can agree on. This is the gray area, and this is what we can debate on. With that. And then with the news part, with the economy stupid thing, is that we then created cable TV with the Turner Network. And the Turner Network created CNN. Yep, cool. So I'm going to finish this topic. So first we had CNN. CNN became our first 24-hour news show back in the early 80s. That then turned into MSBN, Fox News, cable just blew up. And we had to create 24-hour content. Before this, we had our news, and then at the ends of our news, we actually had just color barred and this for 6 hours. We didn't have content overnight. Right. So now we have this 24-hour content. We have the 1 hour news cycle. We have to fill it with shit.
Right.
And then we have the social media. So what happens is we need to get material that's cheap, easy digested, fast. So what happens is now we have a 24-hour news cycle where they're just reading shit off TikTok.
Yes. And I think what the other thing on top of that, right, is if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
So like the negative, violent, sexual, that's the stuff that moves right to the top of the algorithm. That's the top of the news. And the more negative, the more negatively you interact with something, the better it does. This is something that I've talked about with my TikTok content when I used to make TikTok stuff. Was that whenever I made anything positive, it got nowhere. If I've talked about understanding and the middle ground, nothing. If I said, here's why these people are morons, 10,000 views, like right over, just instantly. But
thank you for making me feel better, because mine is all about how to do stretches properly so you don't hurt yourself. So I'm down.
There you go.
I'm probably even lower than can we all just get along? Because can't we all just get along pisses off enough people.
It does piss off enough people, yeah. Well, it's something I've noticed a few people. The TikTok algorithm has changed and become far worse in my opinion. It's also the censorship on TikTok is by far the most censorial of all the social media, and a lot of people who I followed in the past who had really big followings, who had like thoughtful. I have one guy in particular who used to kill it on there. I think he had about 100,000 followers, made these really sort of thoughtful videos, would respond, you could never pin him as a lefty or a righty. He was sort of like really just a very reasonable, thoughtful guy. And he gets like less than 100 views on some of his videos now. And it's problematic. Yeah.
We got another comment
from
the same guy
Yeah.
saying about how like kids don't need to know about like sexual things like blowjobs and all that. And my personal opinion on that
Oh God.
is okay. No, this is an actual
Okay.
So I've on the show I've talked about like porn stuff, and I think this all has to do with porn being extremely invasive and how it's just kind of like it gets introduced at a young age, which once again wraps around all back to this: communicate with your fucking kids and being aware of what the fuck they're watching and what they're doing in their free time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Penthouse is not in the kindergarten library. I am pretty sure we can handle that.
But I think you've seen, like, if you go on, you'll see people posting videos and of like parents at school board meetings reading some of the language out of some of the books that they can find in the library. So again, I get
And it's not the school library. They're going to their public library.
So-
And
no,
the
some of the-
public library does have smut.
Some of it was definitely in public schools. So like I think this is a response to an actual issue. I think the size of the problem is this and the response is this. That's my take on it. Again, the other thing that I will say anytime we get to school stuff, because again, we love to talk about school when we're talking about sexy, violent, whatever, anything controversial and divisive. Schools in America are failing. We are not teaching kids how to read, how to write, how to be engineers and scientists. And that's what the job of schools is. And I would like more than anything for us to get out of the business of defining the culture and this socio-emotional education shit, quite frankly, because, that's wallpaper. That's great stuff. If we were kicking ass in science and kicking ass in math, and we had 99% of kids were coming out literate out of high school, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then okay, cool. Go into the socio-emotional, blah blah blah, whatever. But we're failing at the basics right now. So I think that would be my number one takeaway with public schools is reading, writing, and arithmetic. Focus on that, please. We don't need to be getting into politics and society and all this stuff in the way that we do. Certainly not pre-high school.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're going to wrap it up for our local news. We will be... Hold on. Sorry. We'll be right back We'll be back at 8 o'clock. We'll be back with a bit of a Sunday sanity check and some Doing Better show. Danny will be here. Amberly will be here. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you, Beth, for being here and chatting local with me. I will see you guys next week for Doing Better News.
Have a good day.
Bye.